Peter was a man who lived in a small town in Europe. He was middle-aged, with gray hairs starting to show around his temples. Peter was known by many people in his neighborhood for his sharp tongue and loud voice. He enjoyed sitting at the local cafe every afternoon with his friends, drinking coffee and talking about the world. But often Peter's words were harsh. He liked to complain about many things, especially about people who were different from him. When the conversation turned to politics or world leaders, Peter's words could sometimes sound mean and unfair. Afternoon, as usual, Peter sat in his favorite corner of the cafe. The place was small but cozy, filled with the smell of fresh coffee and warm pastries. Around him, some regular customers chatted quietly or read newspapers. In the corner near the wall, a small television was on, showing the evening news. On the screen, a man in a military uniform was speaking with passion. This was Ibrahim Traoré, a young leader from Burkina Faso, a country far away in West Africa. Peter glanced at the screen with a sneer. He didn't know much about Ibrahim Traoré, but the name had come up a few times in the news. Some people talked about him like he was important, but Peter thought differently. He believed that leaders from Africa were not to be taken seriously. To him, they were just soldiers trying to hold power by force, nothing more. With his friends around him, Peter started to mock the man on the screen. "Look at this guy," Peter said loudly, shaking his head. "Who does he think he is? Just another young soldier pretending to be a big leader. It's a joke. They don't know how to run a country over there." His friends chuckled and nodded. Some agreed with Peter, while others just smiled quietly. Peter's voice was strong and full of confidence, but it hid something else. His fear of things he didn't understand. Sometimes, when people see something unfamiliar, they react with anger or mockery because they feel threatened. Near Peter's table sat Malik, a young man in his early 20s. Malik was different from most people in the cafe. He was a university student studying political science, and he came from Burkina Faso. He had moved to Europe for his studies but never forgot his homeland. Malik was quiet, polite, and often kept to himself. But when he heard Peter's cruel words about Ibrahim Traoré, something inside him stirred. Malik looked at Peter calmly. He did not shout or get angry. Instead, he spoke softly but clearly. "Why do you mock a man you don't really know? Do you understand what he is trying to do for his country?" Peter turned his head, surprised that someone would speak up. "Why should I care? He's just another soldier. None of his work matters here," Peter replied, still confident. Malik smiled gently. "Ibrahim Traoré is more than just a soldier. He is trying to help his people. Many are tired of war and corruption. He wants to bring peace and fairness." Peter laughed, almost mocking Malik this time. "Peace and fairness? Come on. That sounds like a story for children. The world doesn't work that way." Malik's eyes did not lose their calm. "Maybe not. But sometimes people like Ibrahim try to change things, even when it is hard. Maybe you should listen before you judge." Peter shrugged and went back to his friends. But Malik's words stayed with him. Deep down, Peter was uncomfortable. He had been so quick to judge without knowing the full story. But his pride stopped him from admitting it. Days passed. Peter continued to come to the cafe, and each time, the news showed more stories about Ibrahim Traoré. At first, Peter ignored them. He still believed his ideas were right. But slowly, curiosity grew inside him. What was this young man really doing? Malik noticed Peter's change. One day, he approached Peter's table with his phone in hand. "If you want, I can show you something," Malik said kindly. Peter looked surprised but nodded. Malik played a video showing Ibrahim Traoré speaking to his people. The man's voice was strong but calm. He talked about fighting corruption, about protecting the land from foreign companies that took resources unfairly. Malik showed how Traoré visited villages, met with farmers and children, and promised to build schools and hospitals. Peter watched quietly. Something about the man's passion was hard to ignore. It was clear this was not just a soldier who wanted power. This was someone who cared deeply about his country. That evening, Peter sat alone at home, thinking. For the first time, he wondered if he had been wrong. Could a young leader from a distant country really be working for good? The next days brought more news. Reports showed how Ibrahim Traoré faced great challenges. He was not rich or powerful like other leaders. Instead, he lived simply, often with his soldiers. He stood against big companies that had taken wealth from Burkina Faso for years. Peter saw people in the videos cheering for Traoré, waving flags, singing songs of hope. Peter's heart began to change. He realized he had been judging too quickly, without understanding the people and struggles behind the headlines. He felt a little shame for his earlier mockery. Malik and Peter began talking more often. Malik shared stories of his homeland, the beauty of the land, the struggles of the people, and the hopes they held for a better future. Peter listened, sometimes quietly, sometimes asking questions. Over time, Peter's cold opinions began to warm. He learned that true leaders were not perfect, but they tried to serve their people honestly. He understood that prejudice and fear often made people blind to the good in others. The cafe became a place not just for gossip, but for learning. Peter still came every day, but now he watched the news with an open mind. He no longer laughed at Ibrahim Traoré. Instead, he began to respect the courage it took for a young man to stand up for his country against great odds. Peter's story was a small one, but it showed how sometimes people's hearts can change when they choose to listen, not just hear, to learn, not just judge. Far away from the small cafe where Peter and Malik met, in the heart of West Africa, lay a country called Burkina Faso. It was a place of bright sunshine and wide plains, with trees that stretched to the sky and rivers that moved slowly through the land. But Burkina Faso was also a country filled with many challenges. People lived simply, often working hard on farms or in small villages. Many families struggled every day to get food, clean water, and medicine. Burkina Faso was not an easy place to live in recent years. The country had been going through a lot of problems. There were groups of armed men who caused fear and violence. These groups wanted to control parts of the country, and they attacked villages and towns. Many people lost their homes or had to run far away to be safe. The government, which was supposed to protect the people, seemed weak and full of corruption. Some leaders used their power only to get rich, not to help the country. In the middle of this difficult time, a young man named Ibrahim Traoré appeared. Ibrahim was not like the old leaders who had ruled before. He was much younger, in his early 30s, and he had been a soldier in the army. But more than being a soldier, he was a man with strong ideas and a deep love for his country. Ibrahim Traoré grew up knowing the struggles of his people. He saw how hard life was for his family and neighbors. He learned early that courage and honesty were important. When the time came for him to join the army, he did not do it just for power or money. He wanted to protect his country and help bring peace. The people of Burkina Faso had been waiting for change for a long time. They were tired of fighting and corruption. Many hoped for a leader who would stand up for them, someone who would care more about the people than about themselves. In 2022, something important happened. Ibrahim Traoré led a group of soldiers who decided to take control of the government. This is called a coup, and it is when one group takes power by force. But, unlike many other coups in history, this one was different. Ibrahim and his group promised to fight corruption and to bring peace to the country. They promised to listen to the people and to build a better future. When Ibrahim became the leader, many people were surprised. He was young, and many thought he might not be strong enough to handle such a big responsibility. But Ibrahim did not waste time. He started visiting towns and villages, talking to ordinary people. He wore his military uniform but always spoke with kindness and hope. Ibrahim knew that words were not enough. People needed to see change. He worked hard to make the army stronger and to protect the borders. He wanted to stop the armed groups, who had caused so much fear. He also promised to make sure that the country's wealth, like gold and minerals, would be used to help the people, not taken away by foreign companies. His ideas spread quickly across Burkina Faso. People began to trust him because he was different from other leaders. He did not live in a big palace or wear expensive clothes. Instead, he lived simply, sharing meals with soldiers and workers. He was a leader who walked among the people, not above them. News of Ibrahim Traoré's work traveled beyond Burkina Faso. Other countries in Africa and even around the world started to notice him. Many young Africans saw him as a symbol of hope, a sign that change was possible. On social media, people shared his speeches and stories about his courage. At the same time, there were many challenges. Not everyone agreed with Ibrahim's way of doing things. Some powerful groups and foreign companies were unhappy because they lost control over resources they had taken for years. Ibrahim's decisions upset many people who did not want the country to change. But Ibrahim did not give up. He believed in his mission. He knew that true leadership meant standing strong, even when it was hard. He often spoke about unity, saying that the people of Burkina Faso must come together to build their future. Back in Europe, Peter continued to hear the news about Ibrahim Traoré. At first he only heard bits and pieces. He still thought that this young soldier was just another man trying to grab power. But as he learned more, he began to understand that Ibrahim was different. Malik, the young man who came from Burkina Faso, shared many stories about his home country and Ibrahim's leadership. He told Peter about how people in villages felt safer because the army was more organized. He spoke of schools reopening and health clinics being repaired. Peter found it hard to believe at first, but Malik's words were filled with honesty. Slowly, Peter's mind started to open. He wanted to know more about this man and the country he came from. Ibrahim's story was not just about politics or power. It was about hope, courage, and the desire to do what was right for his people. His leadership was a reminder that change can come from anywhere, even from a young soldier in a country many people barely knew. As the days passed, Ibrahim Traoré's name became well known, and his story inspired many. He was seen as a leader who put his people first, who dared to fight for justice and peace, even when the world was watching and judging from afar. Peter's journey of understanding had only just begun, but Ibrahim's story showed him that leaders could be more than just names on the news. They could be real people fighting real battles for the future of their countries and the hope of their people. Peter sat at the cafe, still thinking about the stories Malik had shared about Ibrahim Traoré. At first, Peter had laughed at the idea that this young soldier could change anything important. But now, news kept coming from far away, showing something different. The man on the screen was not just a soldier or a leader trying to hold power. Ibrahim Traoré was making real moves that shook the world. One evening, Peter was drinking his coffee when the news on the small cafe television suddenly showed a headline that caught his attention. It said, "Ibrahim Traoré takes a stand against foreign mining companies." The words were simple, but their meaning was huge. Peter watched closely as the report explained that Traoré had ordered the foreign companies mining gold and other valuable resources to leave the country. For years, these companies had taken wealth from Burkina Faso, but few people had benefited. The money went overseas, and the people remained poor. The news showed scenes of soldiers standing guard at mining sites. Ibrahim Traoré was seen speaking, firmly, saying that his country's wealth must belong to its people first. He promised that the money earned from the land would be used to build schools, hospitals, and roads. This was the first time Peter saw a leader so openly challenge foreign powers, demanding respect for his country and its people. Peter was confused. He had always heard that Africa was weak and helpless, that leaders there were corrupt and selfish. But here was a young man standing tall, facing powerful companies, and fighting for his country's future. Peter felt a strange mix of respect and doubt. Could this be true? Was this man really making a difference? The next day, Malik came to the cafe again. Seeing the headline on the screen, Malik smiled. He pulled out his phone and showed Peter videos of Ibrahim Traoré speaking directly to his people. Traoré's voice was calm but strong. He talked about unity and hope. He said that Burkina Faso's future belonged to its citizens, not foreign companies or corrupt leaders. Malik showed videos where Traoré met farmers, teachers, and soldiers. The leader listened carefully, asked questions, and promised to work hard for them. Peter watched these videos, feeling something he had not felt before. The man on the screen looked honest and serious. He was not a distant leader hiding in a palace. He was one of the people. Malik told Peter about the challenges Traoré faced. Many powerful people did not want to lose control of the country's resources. Some tried to spread lies and fear. Others threatened violence. But Traoré stayed calm. He believed that his people deserved better, and he was ready to face any obstacle to give them that. Peter began to understand why many people in Burkina Faso and other countries admired Traoré. He was different from leaders who only cared about themselves. He lived simply, wore a plain uniform, and often shared meals with his soldiers. People said he reminded them of Thomas Sankara, a famous Burkinabe leader from the past, who had also fought for justice and independence. The news continued to show more about Traoré's plans. He worked to rebuild schools that had been closed because of violence. He supported farmers by providing seeds and tools. He tried to make health clinics stronger so sick people could get care nearby. These were simple things, but they meant a lot to the people who had suffered for many years. Peter began to feel a change inside himself. He wanted to learn more. He asked Malik many questions about Burkina Faso, about its people, and about the history that led to the problems Traoré was trying to fix. Malik answered patiently, explaining that Burkina Faso was a proud country with a rich culture and strong traditions. One day, Peter watched an interview with Ibrahim Traoré that deeply moved him. In the interview, Traoré spoke about his hopes for peace. He said he did not want war or violence but believed in standing firm for what was right. He talked about the importance of unity, saying that all Burkinabe people, no matter their background, should work together to build a better country. Peter was surprised by the warmth in Traoré's words. This was not the harsh, angry leader he had imagined. This was a man who cared deeply about his people and dreamed of a brighter future. Peter realized that his own world had been small and full of assumptions. He had judged without knowing the whole story. But now, he was beginning to see that leaders, like Traoré, could change not only their own countries, but also how others saw Africa. As weeks passed, more stories appeared. Traoré met with leaders from neighboring countries to talk about peace and cooperation. He worked to create programs for young people, offering education and jobs to those who had little hope before. Peter shared this news with his friends at the cafe. Some still laughed or ignored it, but others listened. Peter became more patient and thoughtful. He no longer spoke with quick judgment. Instead, he asked questions and tried to understand. One afternoon, Peter and Malik sat together. As the cafe filled with people, they watched a live speech from Ibrahim Traoré. On the screen, Traoré stood with thousands of people behind him, all waving flags and singing songs of hope. The energy was strong. The people were proud and determined. Peter felt a deep respect for this man who stood so far away, yet seemed so real and important. He thought about how easy it was to judge from a distance, and how much harder it was to stand up for what you believe in. That day, Peter understood something important. Real leadership was not about wealth, power, or fame. It was about courage, honesty, and the desire to serve others. Ibrahim Traoré was more than just a soldier or a leader. He was a symbol of hope for many people. Peter's heart had begun to change. The man he once mocked was now someone he admired. The news about Ibrahim Traoré no longer felt like stories from a distant place. They felt like lessons about courage, respect, and the power of believing in a better future. And Peter knew that his journey of learning and change was only just beginning. As time passed, Ibrahim Traoré's influence grew stronger in Burkina Faso. The young leader was not just a soldier in uniform. He had become the symbol of hope for many people who dreamed of a better life. However, his path was not easy. Challenges came from all directions, testing his courage and determination. One of the biggest problems Ibrahim faced was the ongoing violence from armed groups in the country. These groups, made up of fighters with different goals, had terrorized many villages. They attacked schools, burned homes, and scared families into hiding. The people lived in fear, unsure if they could go out safely or if their children would be able to go to school. Ibrahim knew that to bring real peace, he had to stop these groups. But this was not simple. The fighters were well armed and knew the land very well. Sometimes they hid in the mountains or forests, attacking suddenly and disappearing before the army could catch them. The fight was long and dangerous. Despite these dangers, Ibrahim was not afraid. He traveled to the front lines to meet the soldiers. He encouraged them to protect the people and to treat them with respect. He told them that the army's job was not just to fight, but to serve the nation. The soldiers began to feel a new sense of purpose. They saw that their leader cared deeply about the people they were protecting. At the same time, Ibrahim worked hard to improve the lives of ordinary citizens. He visited villages damaged by the conflict, bringing food, medicine, and hope. People who had lost everything began to rebuild their homes with help from the government. Schools reopened, and teachers returned to their classrooms. Children started laughing and playing again, feeling safe for the first time in many years. Ibrahim also focused on education. He believed that schools were the foundation of a strong country. He knew that if young people had access to good education, they would have a better future. He promised to build more schools and provide books and teachers. His words gave hope to parents who had worried their children might never get the chance to learn. In addition, Ibrahim worked to improve healthcare. Many clinics had been destroyed or lacked supplies because of the ongoing conflict. People often traveled long distances to find a doctor or medicine. Ibrahim made it a priority to fix clinics and hospitals. He asked doctors and nurses to come back and serve their communities. Slowly, health services began to improve. Not everyone was happy with Ibrahim's work. Some powerful leaders and foreign companies saw their influence slipping away. These groups wanted to keep control of the country's resources and wealth. They spread rumors and false news to make people doubt Ibrahim's intentions. They tried to create fear and division, but Ibrahim remained calm and focused. He used honest words and clear actions to show people the truth. He spoke to his citizens directly on radio and television, sharing updates about progress and challenges. His honesty won many hearts. Outside Burkina Faso, other African leaders watched closely. Some supported Ibrahim's efforts to fight corruption and violence. Others were cautious, worried about how his strong actions might affect the region. Ibrahim reached out to neighboring countries, encouraging peace and cooperation. He knew that no country could solve problems alone. Back in the small European town, Peter followed these developments with growing interest. He often talked to Malik about the latest news. Peter felt proud to see how Ibrahim Traoré was standing firm against great challenges. He realized that the stories he once mocked were actually about a leader working hard every day to make life better for his people. Peter also noticed changes within himself. He became more open-minded and less quick to judge others. Through Malik's stories and the news, Peter learned about a world much larger than his own small town. He understood that people everywhere have hopes, fears, and dreams, no matter where they come from. One day, Peter met a group of young people from Burkina Faso who were studying in Europe. They spoke with excitement about their homeland and the changes Ibrahim Traoré was bringing. They talked about new programs for youth, offering education, jobs, and support to those who had been affected by violence. Peter listened carefully and asked many questions. He wanted to learn more about the culture and the spirit of the people. These conversations deepened his respect for Burkina Faso and for the courage of its people. Malik and Peter often discussed how the story of Ibrahim Traoré showed that true leadership means more than just power. It means caring for people, facing challenges with courage, and working every day to build a better future. Peter thought about how many people in his own town made quick judgments about others. He realized that understanding and kindness could change the way people saw the world. He hoped that more people would learn from Ibrahim's example. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim continued to work tirelessly. The road ahead was still difficult, but he never lost hope. He believed that with unity and determination, his country could overcome even the darkest times. He often said, "We are stronger together. No challenge is too great when we stand as one." This belief inspired millions of people, giving them the strength to keep moving forward. And so, Ibrahim Traoré's story became a story of courage, hope, and the power of true leadership. His journey showed that even in the hardest times, one person's vision and heart could light the way for many. Peter's journey of understanding and respect continued as well. The man he once mocked was now a hero in his eyes. And through Ibrahim's story, Peter learned that real change begins when we open our hearts to others and listen to their stories. After many months of struggle, hope, and hard work, Ibrahim Traoré's leadership began to show real results. The country of Burkina Faso was slowly changing, even if the road was still rough. The people who once feared for their lives now started dreaming again. Villages that were once empty began to fill with laughter and life. Children played in the streets, schools buzzed with learning, and markets became lively places where families gathered to trade and share stories. Ibrahim never stopped visiting the people. He knew that to lead well, he had to stay close to those he served. He walked in the dusty streets, spoke with farmers who worked the dry soil, and listened to mothers worried about their children's future. To many, he was not just a leader, but a friend who cared deeply. His efforts to fight corruption also brought hope. Before, some government officials used their positions to take money for themselves, leaving little for the people. But Ibrahim promised to clean up the government. He replaced dishonest officials and set strict rules to make sure public money was used properly. People began to trust their leaders more because they saw changes happening every day. However, Ibrahim's greatest challenge remained the armed groups still causing violence in parts of the country. Despite the progress, these groups refused to give up easily. Sometimes they attacked villages or ambushed soldiers. Families still lived with fear, and many wondered if peace would ever fully come. But Ibrahim was determined. He believed that violence could only be defeated with strength and understanding. He sent his soldiers to protect communities, but also worked to talk with local leaders and elders, hoping to find peaceful solutions. He encouraged young people to reject violence and join efforts to rebuild their country. In one small village, Ibrahim met a young boy named Issa. Issa's village had suffered many attacks, and his family had lost everything. When Ibrahim visited, he promised Issa and the villagers that their lives would improve. He gave them supplies and promised to rebuild their school. Issa looked at Ibrahim with hope in his eyes, a hope that had been missing for too long. Stories like Issa's spread across the country, giving people the courage to believe in a better future. More young men and women joined community programs, working to heal the wounds left by years of conflict. Together, they planted trees, fixed roads, and helped neighbors in need. The world outside Burkina Faso began to notice the changes too. International organizations started to support Ibrahim's government, sending aid for schools, hospitals, and rebuilding projects. Other countries admired his courage to stand up to foreign companies and corrupt leaders, demanding that his people's needs come first. Back in the European cafe, Peter could hardly believe the transformation he saw on the news. The man he had once mocked was now a leader respected worldwide. Peter felt proud to have learned about Ibrahim Traoré's story. He understood that true leadership was not about wealth or power, but about standing up for what is right and working every day to help others. Peter's own life changed too. He became more open and curious about the world beyond his small town. He started volunteering at local groups helping immigrants and refugees, trying to understand their stories better. Through Ibrahim's example, Peter realized how important it is to listen, learn, and respect others, no matter where they come from. One evening, Malik and Peter sat together, watching a speech by Ibrahim Traoré. On the screen, Ibrahim spoke about the future he dreamed of for Burkina Faso. He talked about peace, unity, and the strength of the people. His words were filled with hope and determination. Peter turned to Malik and said, "I never thought I would say this, but Ibrahim Traoré is a true hero. He showed me that real change is possible when a leader cares about their people." Malik smiled and replied, "I'm glad you see it now. Ibrahim is one of us. He fights for all Africans who want a better life." Peter nodded, feeling a deep respect for the man from a distant land who had taught him so much. The story of Ibrahim Traoré is a story of courage in the face of hardship, hope when all seems lost, and the power of one person to inspire many. It is a reminder that real leaders do not just take power. They earn respect by serving their people with honesty and love. As Peter reflected on all he had learned, he hoped that more people would hear Ibrahim's story and see that every country, every person, has value, and that sometimes the greatest heroes come from places we least expect. Through his journey from mockery to admiration, Peter discovered that understanding and respect are the first steps toward a better world. One where leaders like Ibrahim Traoré can lead with heart and courage, inspiring generations to come.